Hi, I'm James and welcome to today's review. Today's review we're going to look at Cold War Gone Hot, supplement for Force on Force. Now, it's been out of print for a long time. I mean, this was published in 2010, I believe, 2011 by Osprey, but it's now available again as a PDF, so I think it's reasonable to include it. It's basically a set of scenarios and information for gaming World War III set in 1986, although one of the scenarios is actually set in 1961. It's actually the confrontation at Checkpoint Charlie with 10 M48s versus 10 T55s. Now, it's got some new rules in it. It's got new rules for vehicle mounted ATGMs, long minimum arming distances for certain missiles, Warsaw Pact tank platoon activation, so you can activate a whole platoon, Warsaw Pact infantry assaults to sort of pick up on how they assaulted, rules for civilians, for the Cold War era body armour, and for wearing NBC gear. A few pages of those. Throughout, it's brilliantly illustrated. It's a typical Osprey book. There are a few photos of games in progress. There are a few photos from real life, but an awful lot of illustrations pulled from various Osprey series. So there are quite a lot of that, and there are some interesting graphics for maps for each of the missions. It's worth noting that the maps seem to be all different styles. It almost feels like a compilation of scenarios that have been put together. Some look like computer screens, some are just drawn on almost squared paper. So it is a bit of a mishmash for that, but it doesn't detract from the overall look. Now, the scenarios themselves are split into three categories. You've got the Cold War Fears, which is the NATO's nightmare scenario if the Warsaw Pact had actually lived up to the hype. Cold War Realities, based on what we found out after the Cold War, where NATO was suddenly seemed to be a lot stronger than we were, and the Soviet Union a lot weaker. And then Cold War Fantasies, based on novels and films from the era. And such we'll pick a few at random just so you get an idea of the sort of scenario we've got. So we've got first one from Cold War Fears is it's called Knife Fight on the Bergenstrasse, West Berlin, 1985. So they seem to have varied the dates within these. I don't know why they put 1986 on the cover. And it's basically East German troops moving into West Berlin with West German Polizei defending. And you've got an extended version of that with sort of all the details in. So it's quite a nice little scenario. Next one we've got, I'm just literally picking these at random, is a Red Army faction terrorist attack. So it's an attack on a US base. It's quite an interesting one. Some of these would transfer quite nicely out the Cold War. What else have we got? And the third one I'll pick from Cold War Fears is quite a nice one. I really did like this one. It's, I'm trying to find this name for it, Hunting the Harriers, and is a Spetsnaz attack on RAF dispersed Harrier sites. 2 Harriers on the ground that they need to try and take off while under attack from the Spetsnaz team with RAF regiment defence. I liked that. That was a nice little scenario. So moving into the realities, we've got the one we've already mentioned about the Berlin Wall. You've got then from Kabul with Love, Behind the Lines in Holland. So you've got Soviet troops. I'm just looking at what they're equipped with. Let's have a look. Yeah, the motorised infantry platoon with separate BMPs assaulting a Dutch remnant force holding a small town. Yeah, that's a very typical sort of scenario. You've then got an interesting one, Hardpoint, the village of Garbund, east of Kabul in Afghanistan. Very much a Mujahideen type scenario, but Added to it, we've also got some American Special Forces. The Americans have decided to commit troops on the ground. So we've got that, and then moving into the Cold War fantasies, these are almost a let's play the game of recognising them. We've got Badgers in occupied Wisconsin in 1983. Yeah, substitute Badgers for Wolverines and you've got a very good idea what that scenario is about. Interestingly, it's all about actually finding items in buildings in that one. You've got Poe. Now this one was taken straight from Dr. Strangelove, and it's quite a useful one if you've only got American troops, because you've got the American Air Force defending the airbase against the National Guard, who are they believe Soviet infiltrators, but in reality trying to stop a nuclear launch. Nice little scenario. Rules for sort of using the M113 to go through the fence. If you fancied giving it a try and you didn't have modern forces, you could easily use World War II or Korean ones and go back to the era. It is one of the best shot infantry combat scenes I've seen on TV. Surprising for the era. But it's almost as if, well before Saving Private Ryan, it was here's a camera, just follow them round. It's shot in that style. And pick one more from that one. Ice Flow, Nowhere to Go. You've got a NATO, joint American and British Special Forces unit attacking a Soviet base in the Arctic. So they're just example ones. There are plenty of others. We've then got the organisations. There's plenty of organisations in there. You've got Federal Republic of Germany, Canada, Denmark, Belgium, Holland, UK, US, US Marine Corps, and Soviet, with a few notes for changing it for the Warsaw Pact. They're broken down quite nicely. Sort of platoons and company lists of kit. They do seem fairly accurate. Then they're not 100% perfect, because, for example, for the British, with the tank troops, it doesn't mention that there were different types. We've just got the one variant. The British infantry, I'm picking the British because I know them best, is 432 equipped, so you don't get the light roll ones. Okay, I seem to know a fair bit about this from writing the video of a British organisation, and I'll put a link to that in the description. So you've got the organisations. They are pretty good. They cover everything that you'd expect to cover. You've then got a few pages of vehicle data charts. Now, in all fairness, they are actually at Ambush Alley Games keeping a full spreadsheet of all the different ones from all their games plus others, but it does give you a quick reference guide. There's a quick chart saying what weapons come under what categories, a chart for the different anti-tank missiles, one for each for Soviet and NATO, and the same for the anti-tank launchers as well, giving the details for those. There's a page then about miniatures that you can use, and it covers different scales, 15, 20 and 28. Bear in mind that is now 11 years old, so that is going to be slightly outdated. Sorry, 10 years old. We've got a glossary of terms of bibliography, and then you've got the Fog of War cards to add to the set. Sort of picking a few of these at random just to give you an idea. You're grounded. A ferocious storm blows up, grounding all air assets. All units at the optimum range reduced to 6 inches, and that has to be played immediately. Another card, you've got Man Down. Randomly selected unit in your force has suffered a non-combat casualty. Treat the unit if it's taken a casualty. Roll on the first aid table appropriate to the unit to determine the severity of the injuries. That's played immediately. There are some nice little cards in there. So quite a nice little book, quite a decent size one. Now I don't play force on force to any degree. However, there's a lot I've pulled from it for other games. So as a background book, it's really good. The scenarios are nice. They're generally designed to play on a 4 foot by 4 foot table, like all the force on force ones. As a result, quite a useful little book. Hopefully you found that useful, and I'll see you soon for another review.